Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's WordStream webinar, Pairing Paid Social and Search. Get more bang for your buck. I'm just here to get things started before I pass things off to our expert. So just a couple things before we get into today's content. Some of you may not be overly familiar with WordStream or why we're qualified to present this content to you. So just a couple things about us. A lot of people know us for our guides, our blog posts, tons of educational information, and that's great. But we also have some free tools, a couple of graders, and we also have our paid monthly subscription to our software. And that's awesome to help businesses of all sizes make the most of their online advertising budget. So if you like what you hear today, which I'm sure you will, you can definitely head to wordstream.com after the webinar and find out a little bit more about us and the kinds of tools that we offer to help you. So just a few more logistics. We will be recording today's webinar, so you can check your inbox, the inbox of the email address you used to register with. And you will have, within the next 48 hours, an email with the recording as well as a slide deck, so feel free to share those. And super important, submit your questions. There is a little box in the GoToWebinar little desktop there, and you can just submit your questions throughout, and we will definitely save time for our expert to get to those at the end. So without further ado, let me pass you all off to Alan.
Hello, everybody. So as Michelle said, I'm Alan. I've worked at WordStream for about 3 years. I started on the managed services team, running AdWords, Facebook, and Bing ads accounts. And I'm currently a senior specialist on the marketing team. I write a lot of the content you read if you check out the WordStream blog. I'm from New Hampshire, and I'm a rabid Boston sports fan, particularly the Patriots and the Celtics. This is important information as we move forward. Today, we're going to talk about paid search. We're going to talk about paid social. We're going to talk about the differences between the two and how you can use them in a complementary way to get more out of your online advertising budget. Finally, I'm going to review one of the many ways that you can combine both paid search and social into a single strategy to win new business more effectively and efficiently. But first, elephant in the room. As you know, Facebook has been in the news over the last few months. There's been some public outcry over their use of data and the ability to use Facebook data by other entities. Fortunately, it doesn't really seem to be having much impact on Facebook. They've recovered $134 billion in their stock since the Cambridge Analytica scandal hit. And the only real issues that you might run into using Facebook advertising these days are a result of the major blow dealt to custom audiences. And there we're primarily talking about the use of third-party data that used to be integrated into the Facebook advertising platform. So the ability to target people based on how much money their house cost or approximate credit score or where they work. You can still do that if you're willing to pay for some third-party data and import it yourself. It's not automatically available to you. That being said, there are still a ton of ways to advertise on Facebook in an effective fashion. Speaking of, this is the state of digital advertising in 2017, 2018. So approximately 69% of the digital advertising market is divvied up between Google and then Facebook and Instagram. While the other 31.5% is really important, that ultimately pales in comparison to the investment the average advertiser is making in both Google and Facebook. Now, Google AdWords is a phenomenal tool. Obviously, WordStream is known primarily for the software that we offer, the services that we offer, and our thought leadership in the paid search space. If you're unfamiliar or need a refresher, Google AdWords affords you a ton of control in your online advertising. It allows you to target users who are actively searching for keywords that you bid on. Consequently, click-through rates and conversion rates are pretty high. However, you don't really get a good idea as to the who. It's not particularly personal. The audience targeting is not particularly advanced, but the ability to target based on intent is incredibly valuable, particularly if you're trying to sell something or generate leads. Facebook, on the other hand, you completely miss out on the who unless you have very granular remarketing audiences, but you do benefit from the ability to create audience profiles using very sophisticated methods, and then target people based on a set of parameters that you identify, whether that's geography, things people like, things people have done on your website, or their proximity of a given audience to one that you've already identified as valuable to your business. You can do an infinite number of things on Facebook, and that's not even scratching the surface. Facebook gives you a decent bit of control over how you get your message across to these people, but does not give you much control in terms of identifying who they are. You're talking in aggregate. Consequently, it's very cheap to reach new users. It can be a bit pricey to convert on Facebook. In terms of reach, 84% of the US population uses Google, and that equates to about 3.5 billion searches a day and 15% of all web traffic. Conversely, 79% of the US population uses Facebook. This isn't the only reach available to you across the two platforms, however. If we look at Google, in addition to the search network, it's also comprised of the display network, which is a combination of more than 3 million websites that 90% of the US population visits on a daily basis. And of course, YouTube, which is the second most popular search engine in the world and the most popular video hosting site in the world. As I mentioned earlier, Facebook also owns Instagram, which particularly if you are a B2C business, can be an incredibly valuable channel for your paid advertising. Facebook also has a display network, and then you can run ads through Messenger, which has its own ludicrous number of users. In addition to reach, ad format's an important thing to consider. On Google, we're somewhat limited, but you can basically figure out a way to use AdWords for lead generation or to garner sales for your business, no matter what you're selling, provided it's not booze or guns or something. Google allows you to use search ads, shopping ads, app installs, call-only ads, video ads through YouTube, and then Gmail ads, in addition to the banner creative that you might see on the display network. Facebook, on the other hand, has more ad types than I could fit in this funny little column here. The ones that you'll see most often are image ads or video ads, but there are also lead form ads, which allow you to pull people's information directly off of Facebook as opposed to having them hit a landing page on your website. App install ads, you can boost posts, you can use canvases or carousels for more immersive experiences, or you can use collections for things like showing off your entire suite of products. The bottom line is that Google has immense reach, the biggest reach of any search network. It has the biggest reach of any display network. Because you can target people based on intent, you see high click-through rates there. Facebook, on the other hand, is the largest social network in terms of reach. It's got a ton of ad formats, regardless of the device you're targeting, the network you're targeting people on. You can reach them in an engaging, immersive way. And we tend to see lower cost per click on Facebook than we do on Google. Obviously, that's because we don't have the intent signal that's so valuable in search. And finally, the robust audience targeting is really what makes Facebook such a valuable ad platform for advertisers. So, as you can see here, and as I mentioned earlier, big New England sports fan, I would look at Google as Tom Brady, and I would look at Facebook as Randy Moss. Both equally talented, equally heralded, but they play different positions and should be viewed as such. So which is better? Kind of a silly question. Ideally, you want to be able to pair the high-intent searchers that you can find on Google with the sophisticated and inexpensive audience targeting from Facebook to reach more people more effectively and then obviously convert them. Choosing just one, frankly, would be a mistake for most businesses. And one example of where we see the symbiotic relationship between the two platforms is that Facebook ads can drive people to search more frequently. If we look at the study conducted by WordStream's data scientist Mark Irvine, we can see that people who only use Google search ads see a 26% lift in search interest for their branded terms when they use Bing ads. They see a 31% lift in search interest when they use display ads, and they see a 34% lift in search interest of their branded terms when they pair AdWords and Facebook ads. If we carry this chart out a few more bars, which we won't do today, you would see that those who use Google search with Facebook video ads see a significantly larger increase as well, but I know video isn't always the most accessible form of creative for SMBs, so we'll cut it off here. Here's an example of a way that you might be able to use Facebook and AdWords in concert. Let's say that you sell very high quality flannel shirts. The people likeliest to buy your shirts, they probably like PBR ironically. They probably listen to records. They probably use beard oil, and I'd assume they live in a city and have disposable income. Basically, you're targeting me. You can use Facebook to build an audience of people who like all of those things. You can introduce them to your brand on Facebook, and then when it finally comes time to purchase a new flannel and they enter buy a flannel shirt online into Google, you can use a tool like RLSA, which we'll talk about later, that's Remarketing List for search ads, to bid up or exclusively bid on these folks and then convert more effectively. How does this happen? By ensuring that you stick to the 3 keys of pairing paid search and social. The 3 keys to doing so are audience, alignment, and attribution. The first, audience. I'm not talking about audience in the Facebook sense, in building an audience out of likes or dislikes. I'm talking about the use of UTM parameters so that we can track actions across platforms. There are other ways to do this. UTMs are perhaps the simplest. On the left here on your screen, you can see Google's UTM builder. It's pretty self-explanatory. So we insert our domain, and then we have a campaign source, a campaign medium, campaign name, and content. By making sure that we complete all of those fields, we can get super granular with our audience creation. We can take a look at who has done what and who has seen what, which will help us further down the funnel when it's time to serve search ads and eventually convert somebody from a prospect into a customer. When you use UTM parameters, make sure that you develop proper nomenclature so that it's easy to ID the actions that people take. This just means consistency. So make sure you spell things like Facebook correctly all the time. Or when you name your campaigns, always use underscores so that way you can match things from multiple campaigns and you can just get a better idea as to the results you're driving based on the money that you're paying for clicks. During the Facebook ad creation process, you have the option to insert a UTM parameter. So you've gone through, you've selected your campaign type, you've defined all of your targeting, your bidding and budget at the ad set level, you're on the ad creation stage, you've chosen your ad type, you write all of the components of your ad. At the bottom it says tracking, and it says URL parameter optional. Personally, I don't view this as optional because you're spending money to run these ads and serve them to specific people. You want to know who has seen what, how they interacted, so that you can do more with that information later. So optional, I say no. It is 100% necessary to make sure that you have some kind of tracking parameters on every ad that you're running, regardless of platform. It's a bit more self-explanatory in AdWords. Facebook, that bit can often go completely overlooked. So hopefully that ensures that it doesn't. Next, you want to go to your Google Analytics account and you want to create audience lists from social campaigns so that we can target them in AdWords later on. By appending UTM parameters to your Facebook ads, you gain the ability rather to target audiences that have the same UTM parameters on AdWords later, whether that's just through a simple bid adjustment, an audience on the display network for remarketing purposes, or a target and bid audience. We'll get into that a little bit later. But before you can ever start doing any of those things, you need to make sure that your tracking works correctly. If you take a look at your website and you see that terrible little red face at the top where it says Google Analytics, you're going to end up making this face. Pretty dour. The way to avoid that and silly little mistakes in code placement and putting the wrong thing on your pages is to use tools like Tag Assistant and Facebook's Pixel Helper. That will help you make sure that everything is on the same page, which helps us transition into the second key, which is alignment. So here we're going to take a little bit of a break to dig into another football analogy. This is Jamie Collins. Jamie Collins is a pretty talented football player who used to play for the New England Patriots. This is Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick is the greatest coach in NFL history, and he still coaches for the New England Patriots. In 2016, Jamie Collins was not on the same page as Bill Belichick, so he was traded to the Cleveland Browns. In that same year, the Browns went 1-15, and the Patriots won the Super Bowl. The bottom line here is that having alignment is the key to success. If you're not aligned, you'll end up like Jamie Collins, an abject failure on a terrible team. So here's how that might play out in paid search and paid social. Let's say that you have a prospect, and they search, I need better landing pages. They see this lovely ad on the left, make great landing pages with crazy high conversions, take your landing pages from good to great with our free guide. They click that ad because they want to improve their landing pages, so we have that first layer of intent match there. And on the landing page, outlined is everything that they will get from the guide. They decide that they'd like to fill in their information and download it. And then on the thank you page, we have the URL at the top. That URL is integral to ensuring that we have alignment across platforms. We can copy that. We can create an audience and then advertise to it using language that harks back to the offer we made in the first ad. So if in Facebook we create an audience of people who visited a specific web page, where the web page is the thank you page associated with the guide we just took a look at, then in our Facebook ad, maybe we push them further down the funnel with an offer to check out the AdWords Performance Grader and use ad copy that speaks to the effectiveness of landing pages in ensuring quality performance from Google AdWords. Cyclically, that looks something like this. So we have that first search ad, somebody downloads the guide, we create an audience based on people who downloaded the guide, then those people are served an ad for a more valuable action, both for them and for us. And you can use this kind of strategy regardless of what your business is. You don't have to be WordStream to do something like this. This is not terribly sophisticated, but it is terribly effective. Basically, putting this all together, aligning brand, message, and offer is integral to success. And if you do it, you're going to get more out of your budget. The final key that we want to discuss today is thoughtful attribution. So a key concept to understand in paid advertising is that not every ad is going to be the one that garners a conversion. Sometimes an ad's job is to assist, to create new opportunities with new audiences to bring you closer to a sale, not to garner that sale in and of itself. To draw a parallel to the NBA, Rajon Rondo, former Boston Celtic, unbelievable assist getting point guard. Just like in paid search and paid social, in the NBA, assists are super important. If you go to ESPN's NBA stats page, assists are listed right under points in terms of offensive statistics. People care about assists in basketball, and they should in paid advertising as well. Google Analytics, again, to return to GA, is a place where we can determine which sources, which actions, which ads are assist getters versus point scorers. So Here we have a conversion path report within Google Analytics, which will show you how users interact with different channels before they convert. And conversion paths can be sorted or viewed at the network, campaign, or even ad level. On the left, we have assisted conversions. So those are those opportunities to create new audiences, to introduce the brand to new people. And as you see here in this really truncated example of the 10, 60% of them began with social. Conversely, on the right, we have the action taken directly before conversion. These are our scores. These are the ones that traditionally would be considered valuable, and rightly so. I mean, these are the ones that earn the new business, but they're not the only thing that matters. And our studies show that conversion rates actually increase with ad exposure. This means that people who see your ad 6 times are 2 times likelier to convert than those who see your ad once. This is a data-backed way of saying that attributing some kind of value to the actions that did not garner a conversion, so those assists that we just talked about, is really important. It's also important to note that people who see your ad more than 6 times are less likely to convert. Think about it this way: it takes 6 impressions before they're completely sick of your shtick. You can resolve this issue by capping impressions in all of your ads and being cognizant of who is seeing what and how often. But if you are aligning your offers correctly and you're building granular enough audiences, you should be able to pass people through pretty seamlessly. Now, a lot of marketers, 89% of marketers even, understand that attribution is very important. However, 66% rely on a single touch attribution model. So that's first touch or last touch. All of the value is attributed to the very first action somebody takes, so the first Facebook ad they click, or to the shopping ad they click on right before they buy a new pair of sneakers. And everything else falls by the wayside. As we've established, there's value in each step of the conversion funnel. So if you're sticking with a first touch or last touch or some other single touch attribution model, you're never going to be able to optimize effectively. You're never going to understand the role of every action, and you're going to have a bad time. To put all of this information together for you today, we're going to review a strategy that I hope you will find useful and be able to implement in your own online advertising. We're going to call it RLSAing your woes away in 10 steps. Let's say you operate in a very expensive vertical. So that could be business services, it could be law, it could be insurance, banking, or maybe even digital marketing. As you can see here in our research on the most expensive keywords from last year, Google AdWords and its subsidiaries came in at the bottom of the list. You might not be in one of the highest priced verticals on a cost per click basis, but you could have very thin margins. You could be a lead reseller. You could own a restaurant, or maybe you sell products with low price points or that are just one-off novelty goods like, say, bacon Band-Aids. For our purposes today, we're going to pretend that we're a ticket reseller. And we're going to use an example that's near and dear to my heart. So the scenario is that me and my wonderful coworker, Gordon, wanted to go to Game 5 in the Celtics-Cavs playoff series this year. In an ideal world, you, ticket reseller, will have ads served to me when I search buy Celtics-Cavs tickets. I will completely gloss over the one that makes mention of Kyrie Irving, who was injured 60 games into the season. I will click on ad number 2. I will then purchase $538 tickets and $13 Bud Lights and have a grand evening. Unfortunately, that's not typically how it works. When somebody searches buy Celtics Cavs tickets, they're presented a whole bunch of options. As you can see here, these are just a handful and doesn't really include regional resellers or anything like that. And if somebody is not already overly familiar with a single ticket reselling brand, they end up resorting to somebody like this guy. And ideally, as a ticket reseller with a moral compass, we'd like to help sports fans avoid nefarious scalpers like this guy. So here's what we do. First, we build a brand awareness campaign in Facebook. To do that, you create a new campaign, you make your objective brand awareness. You could also use reach, but for our purposes, we'll roll with brand awareness. This is an impression-based campaign type, so our goal is to put as many eyeballs on our ads as possible in hopes that they'll engage, and then we can create audiences further down the line. This is a pretty low-cost way to reach people, and our goal is not conversion here. So if you have a conversion-centric mindset right out the gate, odds are you're going to end up pausing this campaign out of frustration, thinking it doesn't work. You have to look at your advertising holistically, and you have to see the role that this is playing further down the line. So in terms of defining our audience, maybe we want to find people who are in the vicinity of Boston, have identified themselves as Celtics fans, and maybe fall into a certain age bracket. Using this information at the ad set level, we're going to define our audience. So let's say it's day of the game, and we only want to target people who are within driving or public transit distance. We put a 50-mile geofence around Boston. We establish parameters, 21 to 55 years old. If you want to get granular, really granular, you could split this into multiple ad sets, one targeting men, one targeting women. If you have data that says a certain kind of creative works better for one than the other, and feel free to do so. Language is of no consequence here. And then the detailed targeting section is, a lot of the time I would encourage putting as many different parameters here as possible so we can get a small audience serving them a very concise message. Here we kind of want to take more of a pray and spray approach. We want subject matter that is broad enough that somebody might be interested, and enough of it that we can create a large audience. The ability to use RLSA for target and bid, which is what we're going to end up doing here, is going to be pretty reliant on us having big enough audiences to leverage the strategy. Again, bear in mind that despite the fact that this will not convert out the gate, it will serve a purpose later, and it will not be particularly expensive. Next, we're going to adjust our placements, budget, and ad scheduling. For a strategy like this, I would definitely recommend using automatic placements to maximize your reach. If you know for a fact that ads for your business do not perform well on, say, Instagram, or in specific placements on Facebook or Facebook's display network, by all means exclude them. But again, we want volume here. So I would recommend automatic placements. You also want to make sure that you use lifetime budget instead of daily budget to let the Facebook algorithm do its magic. And finally, because we are a ticket reseller and because the game happens on a specific day at a specific time, we know that we should end our campaign on that day at that time. You don't want to set a lifetime budget and then end it too far down the line. Otherwise, your audience will be of no value to you. So just be cognizant of when you start and end your campaigns in Facebook. Next, we're going to add the UTM parameters we talked about earlier to our ads. Before we can do that, we have to create the UTM parameters. So for our purposes here, we have our URL, selltix.com. Our campaign source is Facebook. Our campaign medium is CPC, cost per click. And the campaign name is Awareness Celtics Cavs Final. Finally, I would recommend adding a campaign content type here. This is just if you're using ad variants, so you can see where the majority of your traction is coming from. This can help you with your messaging later in your funnel. And it's also just good to know what kind of ads are delivering for you, and having more data sources than just the native platform itself can be super useful. Next, we're going to head to Google Analytics, and we're going to build an audience based on the UTM parameter that we just made. So to do that, in Google Analytics, you're going to go to the Admin tab, and then the Audiences tab, and create a new audience. We want to filter by users instead of sessions, because what we care about is individual people, not the number of times the individual people navigated to a website. And then we're going to add the fields accordingly. So here we have campaign, medium, and source. If you want to add more, you absolutely can. Next, we want to make sure that we're leveraging engaging ad creative. A lot of the times people will stick with static image ads on Facebook, and while those can be effective, they're not always the most effective. You might note that carousel ads really kill it for your business. You might see that messenger ads offer high engagement for you, or maybe if this is not the first time you've interacted with people, you want to hit them with an offer so that they can feel like they're receiving something exclusive. If you're unfamiliar with Facebook Creative outside of the standard static image ad, I would definitely recommend checking out the Facebook Creative Hub. It's a super cool tool where you can see what big brands are doing with different ad types, which can often feel intimidating for somebody who doesn't have dedicated creative resources. So next, we'll return to me and Gordon. We're sitting at work a couple of miles away from the TD Garden where the Celtics and Cavs are about to play. We're playing around on our phones, and we see the awesome Celtics ads all over Facebook. We interact with them, and now we're in your funnel. This is where applying RLSA to high-intent search campaigns comes into play. Now, by most advertisers who leverage RLSA, the strategy is used to increase or decrease bids on high-value or very expensive keywords. If I've already taken an action on your website, and I have proven that I have moved from the research phase into the buy phase, maybe you're willing to pay 5x for a click. And that's a totally valid and awesome strategy. But today what we're going to focus on is target and bid, since we want to maximize the value of every click we're getting on AdWords. Now, target and bid will exclude anybody who is not in the audience that we have created. Again, this is why making sure that we have a very broad audience we're advertising to on Facebook with our reach campaigns is so integral. Target and bid RLSA, as you can see here, only targets users who are part of a specific audience and who then search the high intent keyword. The combination of these two things makes it so that we are only willing to serve ads to and then pay for clicks from searchers who are ready to buy this second. To do this, you're going to go to interests and remarketing section in your AdWords campaign, and you're going to select target and bid instead of bid only, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, for your highest value terms like buy Celtics tickets, Celtics Cavs tickets, Celtics Cavs game 1, how much are Cavs tickets, etc. This will allow us to weed out people who are just browsing and focus exclusively on searchers who are ready to make a purchase. Now, putting it all together, we sell with paid search. When somebody searches buy Celtics Cavs tickets, they're not going to scroll through the ads and then look through the organic searches. They're going to click on what resonates, and that's our ad. A question you might have, particularly if you're e-commerce, is what happens when somebody abandons their shopping cart? They come to your website after you've gone through all of this work. They put a few $100s worth of merchandise into a cart, and they left their credit card someplace, and they cannot complete the purchase, and they depart. Here I would suggest sweetening the deal with if function ads in AdWords. So if functions, for those of you who are unaware, allow you to alter your ad copy and serve a new message to people who are using a specific device or are a member of a specific audience. Here we would want to use a new audience, not necessarily people who interacted with the Facebook ads, but people who interacted with the Facebook ads, then took subsequent action and did not complete. So that would be came to the website, thought about buying tickets, added the tickets to a shopping cart, then did not purchase. If these people see our ads and we're using if functions, we can serve them, say, an extra discount to sweeten the deal. And hopefully, if they didn't purchase before, they purchase now. And if all goes according to plan, you get rich and they end up watching the Celtics destroy the Cavaliers in game 1. Sorry, game 5. In real life, Gordon and I actually did go to this game, and it was fantastic. These were our seats, and this was the person in front of us. And you should definitely pay attention to all 15 seconds of this because the guy was more entertaining than the game, which was kind of lackluster. One, they lost the series, but at least it gave me an awesome story. AdWords is absolutely fantastic for targeting. You shouldn't just stick to one. Instead, you should leverage them in concert to maximize the value of your online advertising. To do this, you use UTM parameters to make sure that you can engage an audience in multiple places. You want to align your brand message and offer across platforms, and you want to make sure that you're giving credit where credit is due so you can optimize more effectively. Putting this together at the top of the funnel, you're going to introduce your brand and get those initial impressions using Facebook. And then once you have a better idea as to the value of a member of an audience and the intent based on a search, we use AdWords to close the deal. That'll help us avoid making faces like this and instead finding success. So thank you very much.
Okay, Alan, that was great. Thank you so much for all that insight. Loads of questions came in, so we're definitely going to get to as many of those as we possibly can. Speaking of these questions, before I jump into them, we've got a lot of questions here that are very account specific, whether it be your vertical, the size of your business, the audience that you're trying to target. Such great questions. And for the purposes of this webinar, we ask that Alan keep things very general so it can be best practices for everybody. But if you are interested in getting those more specific pieces of insights and guidance on your account, we have an offer for you guys today. So you can go ahead and see if this applies to you. So if you're looking for that one-on-one account-specific consultation, you can go ahead and indicate that right now on this poll, and we will get you in contact with one of our experts here at WordStream. Okay, so while you're deciding on that, we will get to these questions. Okay, Alan, right off the bat, something that came up pretty early on, UTM, what does that mean? And can you just explain a little bit more about how you use that?
So shamefully, I cannot tell you what UTM stands for, which is horrifically embarrassing. But it's just a common piece of code that, or snippet rather, that you would append to the end of a URL. Basically, anything after a question mark in a URL does not impact where somebody goes. It is used on the back end to attribute value or to look at where something came from. So you use UTM parameters to get a better idea of where traffic comes from, what it does. They're very, very useful and can be used in a variety of ways. So some people might use them at the keyword level to see exactly what a searcher entered or what keyword matched out to a search query in order to optimize at a super specific level. Other times you might just use it at the campaign level to see which campaigns you should assign more budget to. They're pretty versatile and very easy to use. The UTM builder that I screenshotted and used here is just a free Google tool. So if you search for a free UTM builder, that would pop up.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Alan. And thanks to everybody who's on the website webinar right now who is giving us the answer to that question that just stumped us. UTM apparently stands for Urchin Tracking Module. Not sure if I'm saying that right, but awesome. Thanks for all of you for letting us know.
I never would have gotten that.
Okay, so moving on to some other questions that we got. So at the end in your wrap-up, Alan, you kind of talked about starting with Facebook and then driving searches from there. What about the reverse? What if somebody has like really strong search mechanisms and techniques in place? Can they do the reverse and start with that and then go to Facebook?
They absolutely can, and that's kind of what I outlined with the WordStream example during the keys to success in alignment across channels. If you have relatively low costs per click on keywords, particularly if you're bidding on like broad match terms and you're driving a ton of traffic, you can totally do this in reverse and then use like more engaging ad formats on Facebook, Instagram, what have you, to drive conversion. It definitely works in the other direction. In a lot of cases, though, we would see that you could actually get cheaper costs per click in the other direction, so filling the top of your funnel on Facebook might make more sense.
Awesome. Also, I'm getting a couple more questions coming in that are a little bit confused about what this consultation means, this offer that we've got going on here, and what exactly WordStream can offer. Essentially, WordStream can cover just about everything that Alan explained in today's webinar, how these techniques can apply within your account, which you're already using pretty well, or which areas you need some more improvement on. We cover Facebook, AdWords, and Bing. So any questions regarding any of that kind of stuff, you definitely, that insight can be covered in this offer. So I digress, but back to the questions that you all had. So Alan, you talked a lot about Facebook ads, obviously Facebook and search. Do you know off the top of your head here some top performing kinds of Facebook ads that will get people engaged?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, a lot of people end up using static images, and a lot of images float around on Facebook, whether that's through your friends and family or random pages that you follow or advertisers. I would definitely suggest trying carousel ads out. They're very low investment. It's just multiple images, but there's an additional step that people can take in scrolling through a handful of them, and you can blend a few images into one larger image, like sometimes you see on a particularly artsy Instagram account, or they can be three completely separate images. For example, if you are a restaurant, image number 1 might be a picture of food. Image number 2 might be a cocktail. Image number 3 might be a roaring fireplace. And image number 4 might be a map of how to get there. Video ads are also a format that offers really high engagement. That can be a bit of a tough ask if you don't have video assets, although there are tools out there that can make the creation of short, like 15-second video ads rather easy. And then there's more in-depth stuff like Canvas ads, but those take a decent amount of creative assets and storyboarding.
Awesome. So you've got a question here saying, so these techniques specifically regarding to search, they seem awesome, but what if overall there's not that much volume in the search world for this particular audience member?
That's a really good question. So as I mentioned, using target and bid RLSA is valuable if you have high volume and high cost per click. In instances where volume is particularly low, you could try doing the exact same thing, but using bid-only strategy. So you're not eliminating those searchers who haven't already interacted with you in some capacity or another. You're just willing to pay a premium for the people who are already familiar with your brand.
Awesome. And here's a good question. So we've got someone tuning in today, and they're totally new to Facebook marketing, totally new to AdWords. They don't even have an account yet. What would you recommend some first steps for this person?
In terms of determining whether AdWords and Facebook is right for their business?
Yeah, sure. Just some resources maybe that they can rely on to get started and make sure that they stay on the right track.
Well, I know a particularly intelligent, handsome person who writes a ton of great content at wordstream.com/blog that might be a good starting place. Um, I would also suggest just hopping in some kind of keyword research tool or creating a Facebook business account, and trying to get an idea as to what volume and cost might look like for your industry. And there are guides all over our website that can help you figure that out. Or I mean, it's nothing a Google search can't direct you towards. But yeah, I'd say start with the research to get an idea of how much you're going to need to invest in order to build a coherent strategy for your business.
Awesome. And Alan, I love your answer of WordStream being a top resource. Like I said a little bit at the beginning of today's presentation, we cover all this on our blog and our guides. We've got some free tools even, a Facebook ads grader, an AdWords performance grader. You can find all of those at wordstream.com to make sure you've got the information and to make sure that you're staying on track. So we've got time for just one more question here before we've got to jump off. And Alan, it's in regards to RLSA, another acronym question. So kind of what is RLSA? Can you just go into a little bit more detail about why it's so helpful?
Totally. RLSA, I do know what that stands for. So that's Remarketing List for Search Ads. Basically, remarketing, as you would traditionally think about it, would be banner creative served to you across the display network or across other display networks unaffiliated with Google that serve ads to people based on actions that they've taken that you deem some semblance of valuable to your business. RLSA allows you to modify bids or only bid on keywords when they are searched for by people who have taken action. Basically, it combines the remarketing and search into one powerful tool.
Awesome. Great, Alan. So much content. I'm looking at Alan right now. He is exhausted. He just gave you guys his top tips. We really hope that you found them helpful. Again, I apologize. There's so many questions here. Lots of them are account specific, so make sure that you take us up on that offer for that one-on-one account consultation to get those questions answered for you. And if you didn't take us up on it now and you change your mind a little bit later, that's okay. Just head to wordstream.com and you can connect with us in that way. So we thank all of you again for joining us today. Check your inbox within the next 48 hours or so. You'll get an email with the recording as well as our slide deck. And we'll follow up with you in a little bit with all of that great material as well as some links to our free tools. Again, thanks for joining and we hope to see you on a future webinar. And thanks, Alan.
My pleasure.